The Russo brothers set fire to the internet when they announced that those Avengers teasers weren't teasers at all. They were stories with clues. But now we have paid attention and we're going to break those clues down for you right now. Well, welcome back, ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that we might have missed in the 4 non-teasers, actually stories with clues for Avengers Doomsday. Now first, I will say that we did breakdowns of each of these teasers when they leaked online. We were excited and we didn't want to wait for the digital release, and those breakdowns are pretty solid. I mean, as solid as they could be when you're just going off of like a blurry screen. But after watching all these trailers in high res, we have caught lots of new clues and details, including a huge one that everyone else missed. Doctor Doom is in every single one of these trailers. And then when you play them all in a row, it's pretty obvious that they are telling one cohesive story. Let me explain. Now, as we go through each of these trailers and break down the new details, you'll notice a pattern. They are all calling and responding to one another. The end of each trailer directly sets up the next trailer, and the countdown also has a huge clue that everyone missed. Now, my favorite theory about these trailers that I think is 100% honest comes from all you guys in the comments, and you said that they represent the cycle of life: birth, life, death, and the afterlife. And that makes perfect sense because the MCU is counting down to its doomsday. After Secret Wars, the universe is getting a soft reset and a new beginning. Remember, Loki Season 1 revealed that the MCU is on a kind of time loop. When He Who Remains dies, a multiversal war starts, and he still ends up in charge.
See you soon.
So keep this in mind, that everything, every single visual and sound in this trailer is there intentionally. So let's start breaking these trailers down, starting with the Steve Rogers intro. Now, of course, this trailer plays the Avengers theme on a single piano note. And notice it almost sounds like a lullaby, because as we'll see later, Steve is putting his son to sleep. But the notes are also so infrequent, they also kind of work like the chime of a clock. So the first shot is of the camera slowly rising above the ground. So we're seeing this play out from above, almost like Steve is being watched by a higher power. Keep that in mind for later. But the really neat detail that we missed here is that we have this main gravel road and then a side road where somebody has driven through this field. Was it Coop? No, it could just be a farmer. I don't think it matters who it was. But I do think this tangent road is meant to signify the differing pathways of the timeline. Like when Steve went to the past, he caused a split in the time stream. That's the reality that we're watching right now. And then we go to the same house that we saw at the end of Endgame, where Steve and Peggy live in the DC suburbs. Here's the thing though, that is not the same house where the motorcycle parks. The bike parks on a gravel road. And as we see in Endgame, Steve and Peggy's house is definitely on a small paved street. Now, at first, I got hung up on the colors of the helmet because they're red and gold. So I thought maybe this could actually be Tony driving the motorcycle. But this is definitely Steve Rogers' wedding ring that we saw at the end of Endgame, and it's not Tony's wedding ring, which is like more round. Also notice that there is a gift on the bike with a pink bow. So we have Steve Rogers here arriving at a rural house with a gift with a pink bow. Could this actually be Tony Stark's house in Endgame? Is this from the past in the MCU timeline where maybe Steve showed up for Morgan's first birthday party, or to congratulate Tony and Pepper on having a daughter? And there's actually a fact to support this. One of our fans on Twitter, Street Kaluna, pointed out that the Triumph Scrambler from Avengers Doomsday teaser has an 865cc engine, which started manufacturing around 2008 to 2009, which means that this particular motorcycle could not be in the 1940s or 50s. It would be like 50 or 60 years too late. I guess it is possible that Steve brought it from the future when he was time traveling, but come on. So this is not Steve Rogers pulling up to his house in the past. However, I will say this is Steve's Chris Evans reflection in the window. I overlaid it and everything. Now, one of the things that could work really well about Tony Stark as Doctor Doom is this idea of what would have happened to my life with one small change. I'll give you an example. One of the reasons I can do this job is because I got a college degree in media studies. But for a while, it looked like I might have to drop out. Lucky for me, I was able to take classes online where I learned the skills that made me who I am today. And I think that some of you might be at a crossroads like this, or you feel locked into a career path that just isn't right for you. But there is a way out. If you want to get your degree and go down the right path, try Southern New Hampshire University, the sponsor of this video. SNHU is one of the largest online accredited universities in the United States, and they have some of the most affordable tuition rates in the country. This is a great way to gain real-world experience to help yourself stand out to future employers. SNHU's programs are extremely flexible with no set class time so you can work when it works for you. And you can also transfer up to 90 academic, military, or experiential credits to save time. Southern New Hampshire University believes that education is a basic human right, and that education is the best tool that we have to fix the inequity in the world. They want to transform your life with the power of education. Take it from me, I have my dream job, so it's never too late to pursue something that you love, and this is your time to start. So go to snu.edu/ScreenCrush to explore more than 200 programs and find your path forward. Now back to what I was saying. Now next we see Steve putting away his old uniform, and I did some research, and this is actually a World War II era soldier's footlocker. So symbolically, Steve is taking his endgame suit and placing it in this trunk because his war is over. So we've theorized that this could mean that when Steve arrived in this new reality, he didn't stop being Captain America right away. He fixed all of the problems, freed Bucky from mind control, stopped Hydra, and then retired to have a family. And this would have further split this time stream away from the main MCU, which further implies that Steve caused an incursion that could have actually created the reality that Dr. Doom is from. Now when Steve is holding his son, judging by the blue onesie in the tub in the background, I think it's a boy, he's got a towel on his shoulder for spit up, and he's wearing a red sweater, which is very similar to another wholesome man named Rogers, Mr. Fred Rogers. And then this light shines above him like a divine light in a Renaissance painting, showing how this child has become Steve's entire world. Now that light's going to be important for later. So then we go to the countdown, which probably looks familiar to you guys, but we'll go on to that later. So then we go straight from the image of Steve being a father to hearing Thor pray.
Father.
And this is what I mean. When you watch these trailers together, they tell a story. The first trailer establishes this theme of fatherhood and how being a parent creates this divine joy in your life, hence the light above Steve's head. So the Thor trailer begins with us looking up at the heavens while Thor is praying to a father. And notice the overhead light in Steve's trailer is placed in the exact same position as the sun in Thor's trailer. So we start by hearing the sound of nature. And this is fitting because the Norse Vikings did not build like great stone temples for their gods like the Romans did. The Norse religion was often practiced in nature. Vikings would land on the shores and create shrines to Odin under an open sky. And this shot to the sky is another important nod to Doom that we'll talk about later in the video. So Thor tells us,
All my life, I have answered every call. To honor, duty, to war.
And then we see Thor tending to his adopted daughter, Love. Now, Colton Ogburn, the guy who's trapped in our TV but doesn't know it, so please don't tell him, had a great theory about this, that Love is actually dying. Hooray! Well, Love was resurrected with the power of eternity. That's the living embodiment of the universe. And the universe could be dying because of incursions. Remember, an incursion is when two universes are about to collide, so you have to destroy one universe to save the other. We have seen what incursions look like in Multiverse of Madness, What If, and Loki. It's when reality starts to slowly unravel. And, you know, this slow unravel of reality could have even started in outer space, which could be the space crisis that Yelena mentioned.
And now there's this huge space crisis and no one's telling us about it.
So all of this means that we could have a situation like Arwen in Lord of the Rings, where her life essence is tied to Middle Earth and Love's is tied to eternity, aka the embodiment of this universe. So Love is dying because the universe is dying. So the only way Thor can save Love is by defeating Dr. Doom. And there's a key line here in this prayer.
And return home to her.
Now we have been theorizing in just about every video that Doom is collecting superpowered kids, but now...
I don't think so.
Why would Thor say he wants to return to her instead of saying I want to save her or find her? I think that Thor is trying to save her life. Or at the very least, he's asking for his life to be spared because now he's in the position of being responsible for someone else. See, in every movie, Thor has never been worried about his own life. He rushes headfirst into battle, usually recklessly, even channeling the power of a sun without blinking an eye or thinking of the consequences. But now, he wants to make it home for his daughter. Now the score is also telling a story here. The music picks up right where Steve's trailer left off, playing the Avengers theme on piano.
A life untouched by the storm.
But as soon as he mentions the Allfathers, this happens. Thunder enters the soundscape, like we're sonically hearing all of the past rulers of Asgard coming to aid Thor and answer his prayers. Afterwards, more instruments enter the theme to accompany the piano.
There's warmth to teach her not battle, but stillness.
So the first trailer was about birth and a new beginning, and this trailer is about living life. And the one defining aspect over life, instead of nothingness, is that life is always threatened by death. Nothingness simply is. It is perpetual. But the very act of living means that your time is finite, and this means that we will always be forced to grow and change. So this trailer is about Thor realizing that his time could finally be running out and asking for a little more time before he dies so he can be with his daughter. The trailer is about Thor's fear of death, and he ends the trailer with,
Please find my words.
and then in the next trailer, Magneto gives an answer to his prayers.
Death comes for us all.
See, they're telling a story, you guys. You just gotta watch them together. It was in front of us the whole time. So let's break down the X-Men trailer again with all these fun new details. But first, I want to remind you that we do have so much sweet Doom and X-Men merch at our merch store. Of course, we have our return series. 11 will return in Doomsday, your mom will return in Doomsday, and Palpatine will return in Doomsday. That's my favorite. We've also got hot classics like Tony creating Ultron on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. And on the X-Men side of things, this classic Remember It shirt is a tribute to Gambit, the Nighthawk's Diner with X-Men characters, Beast in the Fraser font, and woo, I'm about to make a name for myself. Links for all of these are on our merch shelf below. Thank you guys for shopping with us. Now back to the trailer. It is important that we go from Thor asking for the ability to protect his kid to a building that was built to protect kids. But it looks like we're seeing like the last days of the X-Mansion. This is the only trailer that does not feature the Avengers theme. Instead, it is a reworking of the score from X-Men 2000, which frankly was always one of the weakest points of the movie compared to this. So throughout this trailer, the camera does glide through the mansion at a low angle, almost like we were walking through the mansion, or we are seeing the point of view of someone else who is observing these events. By the way, shout out to the channel New Media Rockstars who noted this window in the back with the Xavier family crest, which could have been a model for the X-Men logo, note the blue on yellow. Now the Latin here reads, Fiat Lux, Fiat Vis, which translates to, let there be light, let there be strength. Now what's interesting is this motto's never really appeared in the X-Men before. I mean, I couldn't find anything online, and I sure as hell don't remember from the comics. Now, this could be the Xavier family motto, but it does not seem that appropriate to the X-Men, right? So here's my theory. This motto is indicating that Magneto has joined the school with Charles, and the two of them are running the program together. Let there be light refers to Charles's dream of humans and mutants coexisting, but let there be strength refers to Magneto's view of the world. The peace can only be achieved if the humans respect the power of mutant kind. It would make sense if these two have put their differences behind them, as they are now facing the literal end of their world. And as I said earlier, this trailer deals with death, specifically Magneto telling us that
Death comes for us all.
And this is narrated over the wreckage of the X-Mansion, the sign for the School of Gifted Youngsters, noting the comic-accurate address of 1407 Grey Malkin Lane is on the ground. And by the way, this is the same plaque that appeared in the original X-Men films. And note that in this wide shot of the library, we see that shelves have been knocked over, and there are lights shining over to the left. Now, this is reminiscent of when Stryker and his men invaded the mansion in X2 and X-Men Apocalypse. We also see broken busts on the ground, and when Xavier is moving his chair, we see small fires burning in the background. Now, this is obviously after some kind of fight, but not the apocalyptic fight at the end of the trailer. More on that one in a second. So the chair is obviously the original model from the 2000s films, and not the yellow hover chair from the animated series, X-Men 97 and Multiverse of Madness. And this implies that this is the same X-Men universe where Monica Rambeau landed at the end of the Marvels, where Kelsey Grammer's Beast was in a bunker, just like the layer we see in the original film. And notice that the lights of the mansion are blinking on and off, like something has damaged the electric current or the generators have gone to low power. The camera continues to move through the mansion as we get the feeling that Doom is approaching this universe. Now, this staircase in the foyer might look familiar. It's where the Lebowski version of Xavier told Logan to leave him alone.
I'm gonna have to ask him to ask you to leave.
And Logan actually walked down into this foyer in Days of Future Past from the same double staircase where the camera now rests. Now, back to Charles rolling across these fires. I think this could be after a fight breaks out in the mansion between, say, the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. Both Alan Cumming and Kelsey Grammer confirmed that they have worked with Pedro Pascal on this film. So maybe the two teams meet, start a fight, and then Xavier uses his telepathy to freeze everybody, then rolling on in to help everybody work out their differences. And then after the Fantastic Four explain the situation, the multiverse is dying, that could be when Xavier and Magneto retreat to this window to talk about the impending death of their universe. And then we see these two old friends playing chess just like they have in several X-Men movies. Magneto uses his powers to raise the metallic black king. Now in their games, Charles always played white and Magneto was black. But lifting the king implies that he's just been put in check or checkmated and he is about to lay down his piece. And that would surely match the tone of what he's saying, that he has accepted his mortality.
Who will you be when you close your eyes?
Now Xavier is wearing a comic-accurate blue jacket with a red X-Men patch, matching the 1990s Jim Lee designs from the animated series. But Magneto looks retired. He's out of uniform and wearing a sweater. A lot of sweaters in these trailers. There are. Now, as we've talked about on our live streams, it would be interesting to know the context of what they're talking about. Incursions are destroying the multiverse, and they have a trolley problem. Destroy your universe so another could live. And maybe Xavier is having a crisis of conscience here. Maybe he is thinking about destroying another reality. But then in a reversal, Magneto is the one who's telling him, you have to decide what kind of person you want to be. In other words,
who will you be when you close your eyes?
And this takes us to Cyclops, my favorite X-Man, finally opening his eyes. So Cyclops is a character who is always defined by his need for restraint. He always has to bottle up his emotions. I mean, they say that the eyes are the window to the soul, but he has to keep his eyes away from the rest of the world to protect the people he loves. He's always been perceived as an uptight prick because he has to be an uptight prick. He has to protect the other members of the team or else people can die. So this ending shows him finally unleashing his concussion blast. Although we don't know who he's shooting. Could it be Dr. Doom? I mean, maybe. It's telling that he shoots upwards because each of these trailers indicates that a higher power is watching them from above. I should also note that him shooting his blast upwards is imitating the intro from the X-Men animated series. Now, we've already noted these Sentinel legs in the background and how this might be a Sentinel head, but I'm also wondering, is this a fake out?
He's trying to trick us!
What do you mean?
Well, we briefly got a look at the classic Sentinels in X-Men 3, but they turned out to just be a danger room simulation, so this scene could be a nod to that. But look, I doubt it, because the most important thing about the X-Men here is that they've always been unique among the other Marvel heroes for an important reason. Their existence is finite.
What do you mean?
Well, like unlike Spider-Man, Batman, or Superman, the X-Men are actively fighting against their own extinction, and they have faced multiple futures where their entire race is wiped out. So it's appropriate that their trailer is themed to be about death, because it's always been a story where everyone is under constant threat of annihilation. And not for nothing, this entire universe is going to be annihilated. Like, they're going to stop making movies that take place on this timeline, and the X-Men are going to start fresh in the MCU. So the last line of the trailer, again, is,
who will you be when you close your eyes?
And then boom, we go to the next trailer where it starts on black and then tilts down. Again, it's like we're seeing the events from the POV of a higher power. And this trailer likely represents the afterlife. Now, of course, the afterlife is one of the first things we learned about Wakandan culture.
In my culture, death, it's not the end. It's more of a stepping off point.
And of course, in the Black Panther movies, we see this afterlife like 3 times when people drink from the heart-shaped herb and then they go speak to their ancestors or family members. Now notice how the music starts, almost like we're going to hear that same Avengers leitmotif on piano. But then as the camera tilts down, the score suddenly sinks. So when the trailer leaked, we had multiple theories on what this desert could be. We thought maybe it was outside of Wakanda, or maybe even the desert where Shuri fights Namor. But now, I just 1,000,000% think that this is the void at the end of time and space. In the show Loki and in Deadpool and Wolverine, this is like a dumping ground where the TVA sends unwanted objects or people, and they are eventually devoured by a giant cloud dog. Channing Tatum's Gambit was in this reality, and he is confirmed to return for this movie. There was even a deleted scene in the movie that showed him escaping. So I think that this realm is where they're going to encounter Channing Tatum's Gambit. Now, there's other reasons I think this is the void that I'll get into in just a second. Shuri says,
I've lost everyone that matters to me.
And then the drums of Wakanda kick in. And this is signaling how this trailer is transitioning us away from the Avengers world and into the world of Wakanda. Now, several people have pointed out that Shuri's suit now has these bits of aqua blue, which are the vibranium of Talokan. This could imply that the two nations have formed an alliance and are working together, or just that she used some of their tech to repair her suit. She tells us,
The king has his duties to prepare our people for the afterlife. I have mine.
And in the comics, the Black Panther has a special spiritual connection to the afterlife and the Wakandan people. The Black Panthers are the avatar of Bast, which is why they are also called the Kings of the Dead. When Wakandans die, they are said to travel to the realm of Bast, which is why Wakandans believe that death is merely a stepping off point. And not for nothing, but the goddess Bast did appear in Thor: Love and Thunder right here. So I believe that the void is a kind of symbolic afterlife. After you're pruned, this is where you go. I mean, the camera even tilts down in the opening shot, implying that we are looking at the underworld. And this is also a perfect mirror to the beginning of this story when we met Steve Rogers and the camera was rising. And as Shuri talks about loss, she recedes into the desert out of focus, which in film usually implies that someone's story is ending as they walk off into the sunset, or they don't become visible anymore and it means that their story is ending. So this looks like the same Mesoamerican architecture of the city of Talokan, and the temple in the back is definitely a temple from Talokan. Now, the temple being in a desert could mean a few things. Like Doom could have pruned them. He could have pruned the entire temple. He could have drained the oceans on Earth, or maybe this is some alternate Earth where the oceans were destroyed. Now obviously this means that time is limited for Namor's people. Their breathing masks are finite. They are not meant to last forever, so the clock is ticking for them. In fact, that's a common theme across all the trailers. Time is running out as we're literally counting down to Doomsday. Personally, I think a good pruning here is the most likely cause. In our video last Friday, we talked about how Doom could have wanted to strip mine the vibranium of Wakanda to build his own device to restructure the multiverse. And that castle at the end of time could be Doom's new citadel. Now, if this is the case, it would make sense for Shuri and the Wakandans to venture here. After all, the void is just a stepping stone away from reaching Doom's palace. So what I'm saying is that Shuri and the Wakandans may not have actually been pruned to travel here. Shuri might have built a device or captured a device that can transport their ship to the void. And then we get our first crossover tease, Ben Grimm meeting the Wakandans. Now, if the Fantastic Four are here, this makes me think that they also found their way to the void by using a multiversal traveling device invented by Reed Richards, or maybe Doom is just going around pruning people. Now the big question here is, who is she saluting at the end? It looks like she is returning a salute, but M'Baku is already boarding the ship. So she could be saluting Nakia. If it's the afterlife, she could be saluting her mother, or even a variant of T'Challa. Or maybe her young nephew was sent here already and he's aged up into a grown man. Fact is, I just don't know. Curious what you guys think. And then we go to the countdown clock, and this is where I think Dr. Doom is hiding in all of these trailers. Take a look at the A, or obviously what's behind it. It's a window, and does the architecture look familiar? See? It's very similar to the window in the Palace of He Who Remains at the end of Loki. Except for He Who Remains, his window is circular, representing the single looping sacred timeline, and the time loop of the MCU that we talked about earlier. But now, that's no longer the case. Instead, outside, we know there's a great multiversal tree that was supervised by Loki. So the window's new panes are vertical, and instead of showing the purple sacred timeline outside, we see Loki's green tree. See, I think that Doom, very early in the movie, takes over the TVA. It might even be the first scene. That'd be pretty fun, watching Dr. Doom go through the TVA and take everybody out. And from there, he dethrones Loki and rebuilds the Citadel at the end of time and space. And so now, all of these trailers are actually Dr. Doom watching these people, and he is watching them from afar, from above. It's why our first views of Steve and Thor are shot from above, like a greater power was looking down on them. It's also why we have this first-person POV in the X-Men trailer, and it's why the Wakandan trailer opens with a tilt downward. All of these events are being observed by Doom through the window of his new headquarters. And there's one object that connects every single trailer. They all feature a window. It's one of the few visuals we see occur in every single one of these videos, because a window represents Doom watching these events through his window as they occur. But do you guys think that's a reach? Are there any details we missed? Let me know in the comments below, or you can find me on Substack, and a subscription there would be really nice. Thank you so much. Or you can find us on our free-to-join Discord server. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.